crossover bridges, are these exposed to weather? Are these exterior? Are these exterior? Oh my God, we got a marketplace that's how big? Is it $1 billion industry? Who's tapping into it? This is other forms of slides they used to have on buildings before they were outlawed.
It's like McDonald's right there.
Yeah. These are some of the other supplemental evacuation systems that we talked about. They're not second means of egress. They're bag ladders and such that you buy. Okay? Lights, as they say, and questions and concerns, because it's a lot of information that just got blasted at you.
Definitely made us a lot more aware of what we should be looking for.
And how much liability you're carrying
Yeah,
that you didn't realize you were carrying.
yeah, that's for sure. I'm gonna ask you on the hydraulic ladders, they have retrieval cables. The cable hooks are not allowed to be attached permanently to the ladders.
Correct.
Are they?
Correct. And again, what we found, we have not been able to successfully fix a hydraulic ladder system.
Yeah.
They're 50 to 75 years old. It was a poor design to begin with. They leak all over the place, and if you were to leave them without that cable, they fall to the ground all the time.
Yeah.
So is it a repair project? I'm gonna repair it or replace it, or modify it with any other form of reduction, because that's the only thing you can do. So our norm is that we get into a hydraulic system, we don't even try to fix it. We use the hydraulics as nothing but a guide now for the ladder.
Counterbalance.
Well, the counterbalance is exactly it. There's two counterbalances. Weight counterbalances on cabling, or we actually use a retrieval system
Right.
that once you put it on, the centrifuge on that, when you release it, properly protected, and with a release arm, it drops it at 2 to 3 feet per second. So the cable still stays on it now.
Right.
But now you're using it when you release it, because as it starts unwinding, it actually slows the thing down and hits the ground. Because we cannot fix hydraulics. Have you been able to fix hydraulics?
Well, I mean, you can get them to drop a little better, you know, by removing the old hydraulic fluid.
Stop trying to fix them, they
Yeah.
can't be fixed.
How
It's
about
it's impossible.
so those, a lot of times we'll get calls, or not a lot recently, but in the past, through the years, I have run into this. Those hydraulic ladders leak because the
Yes.
seals are not properly redone as often as they should be. They leak, and then with the accumulation of the oil, it turns into grease. You know, we'll write them up because obviously it's a slip and fall type of thing. If somebody were to grab onto that, they're just gonna fly off of it. So we'll go in and scrape it all off. But now you've brought to my awareness, now we're scraping off probably what paint was on there too. Whether or not it was lead-based or not.
It is
never-
lead-based.
Never even
The
came to my
EPA says right there,
consideration.
anything older than 78 is presumed to have lead unless the owner gives you a document by a state licensed lead inspector, which has nothing to do with fire escapes or Reg 4 or anybody. And he says, I've tested it and it either has low lead or no lead. And you have to, in order to touch it or play with it, paint it, you have to have a renovator's license, which you should get right away. It's an easy course, $150 to $300 for a weekend, or they do
It's a day, 8 hours.
Yeah, just put in EPA renovator's license, California, and they'll show you like 60 people in the area that are giving the class every so often.
They all have them in a hotel room like this.
Yeah, they'll have it, you just come in.
So how do you, I mean, how would you handle something like that? You get a call from, you know, a customer downtown. They've got a ladder, they've been written up for excessive grease on the ladder. The first step you would have to take, if you're not an EPA inspector, is you'd have to bring in an EPA. So you would tell that client, you would say, I can't touch that ladder unless it's certified by an EPA inspector.
No, it's not certified, you're going,
Or
no repairs can be done to this fire escape, whether it be painting or repairs. If it's paint only, it has to be somebody with an EPA renovator's license, which you can go get. So you are the guy that's gonna deal with it.
Okay.
But now your next question is this a permanent activity? Usually painting is not. There's no permits needed for painting. So, but again, every time, the biggest concern that we have here is you're dealing with a ladder system that as soon as you have to repair it, are they requesting that you have a permit on it?
Yeah.
And you have to have repair criteria submitted to who? Fire prevention or building and safety?
Building safety.
Because you're gonna pull a permit.
Right.
As soon as you go there, does Reg 4 have anything to do with this anymore? No. It's still your client, you're just bringing in the next phase of it, which is now, you need to get this fire escape back to the 5-year certification for the whole entire system, and once that happens, you can do the yearlies from now on. But then, most likely, within the next 3 to 5 years, as told to us by Reg 4, they're probably gonna implement the 5-year rules similar to San Francisco.
Have you been told, you know, per Regulation 4, or even just the state of California, state fire marshal or anything, if I'm going out and inspecting a fire escape assembly, which includes some sort of drop ladder assembly, and I turn around and I'm looking at the fire escape and I say, in my opinion, it looks okay, but the counterweighted weight box is completely rotted out and needs to be replaced. Is that a permit situation?
Yes.
Because you're actually replacing anytime I'm replacing parts on it or altering it or repairing it in any way.
Based on their statements and the nationwide statement, if I'm just painting a pristine fire escape that has passed a confidence test, there's no permit required. But now the only thing required in painting that fire escape is you have to have an EPA renovator licensed person paint that fire escape, and that could be anybody. The building owner could have a maintenance guy who has taken a renovator's class and he's going to paint it for you. So that's how simple the painting process is going to be, and no permit is required. The fact that you need to be EPA certified is the only new requirement now touching something older than 1978. Oh, but I have to change bolts. Now you're crossing a line, city official says, we need permit income, we need you to pull a permit.
Yeah.
They'll make it pull a permit if you're changing a light bulb. So now it's permitting, as soon as it pulls a permit, you need to bring in the second half of your company, which is saying, you know, I have really 2 things that I'm inspecting. 75% of this yes/no document really pertains to everything related to the fire escape, ladder and cantilever, correct? Does it have any, 75% of this Reg 4 test, does it have anything to do with the gooseneck up above? No. 25% now says, take a look around and give me an opinion. But are they giving you any disclaimer on there? No. So now you have to have some expertise, and you should be careful on what you're saying is okay, because they're really wrapping up a little bit of your knowledge about the fire escape assembly system. So it's a little dangerous to say, it looks good to me, because now, should anything happen on that other 25%, what happens? Fireman going up over the ladder, coming down, and the thing goes, whoa! You're gonna say, who did this last inspection?
Yeah.
A+.
That's what you're worried about.
A+ comes in and says, well, dude, I just did the ladder and I answered your questions and it looked all right to me. You're most likely gonna win, you know, because you're gonna come in and say, hey, it's not asking me to load test it, it's not asking me, but you're involved in this dragged out lawsuit that's gonna eat what?
Yeah.
Time and money. That's what's happening with us in Chicago. We're dragged in whether we like it or not, simply because we signed the last document off. So here, and now we're learning. So well, with all this that we learned, and from me being in, this is one of the reasons why fire escape awareness is where it is. I was sitting in a room with 8 lawyers with their pointy fingers going, what? Who do they want to hang? And I came back and said, hey, Chicago says, perform a critical evaluation. They don't tell me to perform a load test. And they asked me to give you an opinion letter. Can they hang me on an opinion? And thank God my letters that I wrote had disclaimers. My disclaimers say nobody's enforcing load tests or other evidence of strength. You see where that comes? So the huge liability associated with anybody that you're subbing out to has to be, are they really following the law on something that is life safety? So if somebody can get hurt, everybody goes to court. As soon as you bring guarantees, it's hard for them to drag you to court when you did everything possible. what I'm saying? So if a fire sprinkler passes a test, and then somehow it fails on the day that it needed to work, one of the heads failed, it's a manufacturer's problem. Because it did pass a test, and then every year it's passed the test, and that thing never blew. But the day it finally charged up, all the sprinklers worked except that one in that room. Well, then as soon as you take that one out, it's a manufacturer's defect situation. Because it passed a load test. How can they say you didn't do your job? Say, I did my job. And every time we tested it, it never failed.
But we'll still get sued.
Oh, you're still gonna get sued, but now
Yeah.
you're way back in the line because the manufacturer, because you automatically sue the manufacturer. So the manufacturer's in there now trying to claim, oh, you know, the water pressure and certain impurities in the water cause the thing to corrode and oxidize and blah, blah, blah. And but that's their deal. Because they were trying to blame it on you. I said, no. Now, if you never performed the load test and signed off on it, now you're caught. But if you did perform the load test, then, you know, that's where we're at. So what we like to do is, when we teach these classes, that's recorded, we'll put it up online. So feel free to go back. We have other classes that are just as interesting as the one we just did here that go into great detail. But we also like to build relationships with a lot of you guys and also cross relationship. And before you arrived, we were talking about how the National Firescape Association became. It became because nobody was doing anything about it. So all these real estate agencies out there started associations. All these florists started association. And we were just briefly talking, and today we talked about the possibility, and we'll get it going, of a Reg 4 association of the Reg 4 testers. And basically, if that group is 50 or 100 people or 200 people, it's not to go get certified, it's basically to have a place where we can hang out in a coffee place and, you know, drink some coffee and start having a website that you can have blogs in there, and you guys can get to know each other, and also, hey, I'm having a problem with this, what did you do and how did I do it, and basically have one collective voice that's only in LA. You can't use it anywhere else. This organization will have no power anywhere else. But the Reg 4 testing is a pretty good system, but with that, you'll be able to cross. So I do fire pumps, I do sprinklers, I do fire escapes, and this is how basically everybody can sort of share into various parts in this business. Because look how big my industry is nationwide. You're just dealing with it in LA. But you were dealing with it not knowing as much as you should know and taking a little bit of risk along with it. So from today on, I can see that you're not gonna take as much risk anymore. You're gonna still do your job, but you're gonna look at it totally different and help educate your client to say, hey, what we used to do before, we were really uninformed, but now that I'm informed, I'm really taking on more liability than I ever wanted to, and this is what you got. The law is very clear. The authority having jurisdiction shall accept by law test or other evidence of strength. We've never given them any other evidence of strength or a load test, and yet our signature kept going on the bottom of these documents, and the only thing that saved us is the fact that we don't have fires every day. But if you put every building in LA through at least one fire every year, mandatory, like they set your building ablaze, you know, you'd have a lot of dead people or a lot of dead firemen on the ground because a lot of these would not fail. It doesn't happen. So just like the parachutes in planes don't get tested, but 40 years later you put it on, you jump out, you go, you're like, holy, how come nobody tested that parachute? Because nobody jumps out of airplanes. So that's where we are today. So education. And, you know, we appreciate you guys coming down. We're supposed to have some more people, but they all plan to use the sunny day to do other things.
We're the lucky ones.
They're the lucky ones. Well, again, you'll be able to share with some of your friends, because a lot of you guys know other Reg 4 guys. The video will be on a book. We'll send these books out to other people with this video. And if you have any further questions, we'll be in touch with you to build relationships with you and build relationships with you anyway. So that's our thing. And if you guys want to give each other cards.
Thanks. I went off and forgot to grab them. I'm sorry.
Send me an email.
I will.
All right.
And then that's what it's all about. It's about building relationships, because we all have something in common, and that is there's a lot of Reg 4 activity going on in LA, and it's only a matter of time before LA is making the jump. Right now, you see the economy percolating a little up, right? And
Well,
when
it's
that
not just
happens,
LA too, because I noticed you're from Anaheim, but you know, it's all over, you know, the whole LA County, Orange County, the Inland Empire. This is a huge area, and everybody has fire protection. You know, we don't only just work in
Sure.
in LA. The majority of our work is, counties, obviously, because it's just a huge market, but, you know, we also work Ventura County and Orange County, everywhere.
And that's why we did this class, is to
You
help.
try and get this word out to people, it's
Yeah.
gonna only help.
Yeah, and we want to become we want to become that arm of you. Instead of you setting up a Farscape division, we are your Farscape division. We're here to help you basically cover that and be the experts in that, and also.
Like I've been told 100 times, I'm just a tester, so.
No, you're an engineer.
I'm already
engineer.
ready for, I'm a tester.
Right, so never call yourself an inspector, but